She doesn't run after anyone. She doesn't beg. She doesn't plead. A strong woman knows her worth. And because she knows her worth, she moves differently. She doesn't chase love, opportunities, friendships, or success. She becomes so deeply aligned with her purpose, her values, and her inner peace that everything meant for her is naturally drawn toward her. That's the essence of true feminine strength. Not in how loud she is, not in how aggressively she pursues, but in how gracefully she commands energy without ever forcing it. You see, the world teaches women to chase, to prove themselves, to seek approval, to constantly do more so they can be seen, accepted, and validated. But a strong woman unlearns all of that. She realizes that chasing is often a reflection of inner lack, of fear, of feeling like time is running out. She understands that nothing lasting ever comes from desperation, only from deep-centered self-assurance. She doesn't need to convince anyone to stay. If someone doesn't see her value, she doesn't try to change their mind. She simply steps back, confident that her presence was never meant to be wasted on temporary people with shallow eyes. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. What she does instead is simple yet powerful. She builds herself. Quietly, consistently, she works on her mindset, her goals, her healing, her joy. She becomes the kind of woman who inspires, who leads, who radiates energy that others want to be around. Not because she's trying to be noticed, but because she has become someone worth noticing. That's the truth about attraction. You don't attract by shouting, by chasing, or by forcing. You attract by being, by growing, by becoming. And a strong woman knows this truth to her core. This is the mindset shift we're diving into now. Through each part of this journey, we'll uncover how strong women move in love, in ambi, Etienne, in setbacks and in silence. We'll explore the power of stillness, the confidence of patience, and the unshakable resilience that comes when you stop running and start trusting. She doesn't chase, because she's the one they remember. She's the one they come back to. She's the one whose energy leaves an imprint. And if you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming, this message is for you. Let's begin this journey into the quiet, grounded, irresistible power of a strong woman who attracts everything meant for her, just by being herself. The power of presence. A strong woman's presence speaks long before she opens her mouth. It's in the way she walks into a room, calm, unbothered, unshaken. She's not looking around for approval. She's not scanning the space to compare herself to anyone else. She knows who she is, and that knowing radiates from her effortlessly. Presence isn't about how much noise you make. It's about the energy you carry. A strong woman understands this. She knows her power lies in how she carries herself. With self-respect, with clarity, with peace. That's why people notice her without her trying. She doesn't compete. She doesn't prove. She just shows up fully in her skin, and that alone is magnetic. But presence isn't something you fake. It's something you build. It comes from doing the inner work, from healing the parts of yourself that once felt invisible or not enough. It comes from learning to sit with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to find power in solitude instead of fearing it. A strong woman has spent time in silence. She's faced her pain. She's made peace with her past. That's why she doesn't shrink in front of anyone, because she no longer doubts her own value. When a woman is rooted in presence, she's not easily shaken by external chaos. People may come and go, opinions may shift, seasons may change, but she remains steady. That steadiness is rare, and rare is always attractive, because while the world moves in panic and rush, she chooses stillness. While others are busy chasing validation, she's building her world, brick by brick, step by step, with quiet confidence. Presence also means being deeply connected to the now. A strong woman doesn't live in regrets of the past or anxieties of the future. She chooses to be here, now. In her conversations, she listens. In her actions, she's intentional. She's not distracted or scattered. Her attention is powerful. And when she gives it, people feel seen. That's a gift, and it's why people naturally lean toward her. She doesn't have to chase connection. She creates it by how she shows up. And most importantly, she doesn't lose herself trying to be seen. She doesn't change to fit in. She knows that real presence comes from authenticity, not performance. So she stays true to her values, her standards, her vision, no matter who's watching or what the world expects. In the end, presence is power. It's the foundation of attraction, leadership, and respect. And a strong woman knows that the more rooted she is in herself, the more she draws in everything that was already meant to find her. She sets the standard, not the trap. A strong woman doesn't lower her standards to make others feel comfortable. She raises the bar, not to intimidate, but to inspire. Her boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are gates that only open for what aligns with her peace and purpose. She's not interested in trapping anyone into staying. She's focused on setting the tone for how she deserves to be treated. People often confuse attraction with manipulation. They think it's about strategies, games, or pretending to be less so someone else can feel like more. But a strong woman doesn't play games. She's not trying to win attention. She's creating a life so fulfilling that attention becomes a side effect, not a goal. Her standard isn't rooted in pride, it's rooted in clarity. She knows what she wants, what she deserves, and more importantly, what she will never tolerate again. This clarity wasn't handed to her. It came from experiences that taught her the cost of settling, the weight of being unappreciated, the pain of giving too much to people who gave too little. She's learned. And now she moves differently. She doesn't chase because she knows chasing often leads to compromise. And when you compromise your values to keep someone around, you're teaching them how to devalue you. Instead, she leads with respect. For herself first. She understands that if she bends too far to be accepted, she'll eventually break. So she stands firm. And here's the paradox. When she sets a high standard, people rise to meet it. Or they fall away. Either way, she wins. Because the ones who walk away weren't meant for her energy, and the ones who stay understand her worth without needing reminders. A strong woman also doesn't fear being misunderstood. She's not everyone's cup of tea. And that's perfectly fine. She doesn't dilute her essence to be palatable. She doesn't shrink so others can feel taller. If her power threatens the weak, she lets them leave. If her truth shakes comfort zones, she embraces the silence that follows, because her peace is non-negotiable. Attraction begins when you stop performing. When you stop sacrificing your values for the illusion of love or success, when you realize that the right people don't need convincing, they need authenticity. And that's what a strong woman offers unapologetically. She doesn't set traps. She sets standards. She doesn't chase. She attracts, because what's meant for her doesn't need to be hunted. It finds her naturally when she walks in her truth. Ready for part 3. Her silence is a statement. Silence. It's where her strength lives. A strong woman knows that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opinion needs a response, and not every situation deserves her energy. Her silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's self-control, it's the space where she regathers, reflects, and reclaims her power. She doesn't argue to prove herself, she doesn't explain her worth to people committed to misunderstanding her. She's not here to convince anyone of her value, she embodies it. That's why her silence speaks louder than noise. When she walks away quietly, it leaves an echo. When she doesn't respond, it creates curiosity. When she withdraws her energy, it's felt deeply. There's a misconception that strength is always loud, always seen, always heard. But for a strong woman, strength often looks like walking away instead of lashing out. It looks like choosing peace over proving a point. She doesn't need the last word. Her actions speak volumes. She doesn't need to announce her next move. Her growth will reveal it. Silence is also how she heals. Instead of running from discomfort, she sits in it. She listens to what her emotions are telling her. She doesn't suppress them, but she doesn't let them control her either. She's learned that in silence, clarity is born, decisions become clearer, direction becomes obvious, and in that stillness, she reconnects with her deepest self, the part that doesn't need validation, the part that already knows. People may misunderstand her silence. They may think she's distant, cold, or indifferent, but the truth is, she's protecting her energy. She's guarding her peace. She's learned that constant explaining and defending drains the soul, so instead she chooses quiet dignity. She allows distance to reveal intentions. She trusts that time always tells the truth. Her silence is also her boundary. When someone crosses a line, she doesn't chase them down to fix it. She doesn't beg for respect. She lets the silence do what words cannot, create space for accountability. And if none comes, she knows that was her answer all along. What's powerful about this kind of silence is that it's not passive, it's active. It's a conscious decision to rise above, to remain centered, to refuse to be pulled into chaos. And when a woman can master her silence, she becomes unstoppable, because she's no longer reacting to everything around her. She's responding to her inner compass. A strong woman uses silence like a weapon, not to hurt, but to protect, not to manipulate, but to maintain clarity, not to distance herself from others, but to stay close to herself. She doesn't chase closure, approval, or explanations. Her silence says, "I've said all I need to. Now watch me move." She chooses, she doesn't beg. A strong woman understands that choice is her power. She doesn't wait to be chosen. She does the choosing. She doesn't cling to people, situations, or relationships that no longer align with who she is becoming. That's not ego. That's evolution. She has outgrown the version of herself that begged for attention, validation, or love that came with conditions. She doesn't chase, because begging robs a woman of her dignity. It tells her spirit, you are not enough as you are, and she refuses to believe that lie anymore. Instead, she walks with the quiet confidence that if something or someone is right for her, it won't need to be forced. She doesn't beg because begging says, I need you to complete me. But she already feels whole. She's not looking to be completed. She's looking to be matched. In love, she doesn't fall blindly. She observes. She notices how she's treated. She pays attention to energy, to effort, to consistency. And if something feels off, she doesn't second-guess her intuition just to avoid being alone. She knows that peace is far better than attachment built on illusions. She doesn't entertain half-love, breadcrumb attention, or temporary comfort disguised as commitment. She's willing to be alone, not because she prefers solitude, but because she refuses to trade her self-respect for companionship. That's a bold move in a world that tells women they're running out of time. But she doesn't operate on fear-based timelines. She trusts the process, she trusts herself, and she knows that rushing into what's not aligned only delays what's truly meant for her. In her career, she doesn't chase titles, applause, or external validation. She moves with purpose. She builds her value silently. She prepares in private and lets the results speak for themselves. If she's overlooked, she doesn't crumble. She builds something of her own. If doors close, she finds windows. If no one believes in her, she believes in herself enough to carry on. That's the spirit of a woman who no longer begs. She builds. Begging makes people feel sorry for you. Choosing makes people respect you. She knows this. That's why she carries herself like someone who deserves the best, not in arrogance but in truth. And when she speaks, there's weight in her words, not because she's loud, but because she knows her worth and no longer discounts it for the sake of being liked. Her time, her love, her energy, all of it is sacred now. She gives it where it's earned, not where it's demanded. She doesn't convince anyone to value her presence. She shows up fully, and if that's not enough, she knows she's simply in the wrong room. She chooses with intention. She doesn't beg for crumbs. She creates feasts. She builds, she doesn't wait. A strong woman doesn't sit around hoping someone will come save her. She doesn't wait for permission, perfect timing, or the right mood to start becoming who she knows she's meant to be. She builds, quietly, consistently. And when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when the path is lonely, she still builds. She doesn't wait for someone to invest in her dreams. She becomes her own investor. She doesn't wait to be discovered. She discovers herself, piece by piece, day by day. That's her power. She's not relying on circumstances to align. She's aligning herself regardless of circumstances. Because she's learned, what you build in private eventually shows in public. She doesn't waste her energy sitting on the sidelines hoping someone notices her. She puts her head down and does the work. Not because she's chasing recognition, but because she knows who she's becoming is more important than who's watching. She doesn't need attention. She needs alignment. And when her values, her actions, and her purpose line up, she becomes unstoppable. This kind of woman doesn't need someone to give her value. She creates value in how she carries herself, in what she offers, in the way she shows up for herself even on the hard days. She understands that confidence doesn't come from people praising you. It comes from keeping the promises you make to yourself. While others wait to be chosen, she chooses to grow. She doesn't sit in envy watching others rise. She studies, she learns, and then she applies. She knows she's capable of more, so she stretches herself. She embraces discomfort, not because she enjoys it, but because she knows growth lives there. And she refuses to live a life of what-ifs. When life knocks her down, she doesn't complain. She recalibrates. She doesn't panic in uncertainty. She pivots. That's because she knows her fall. Foundation is internal. She's not building her life on the unstable ground of other people's opinions or temporary praise. She's rooted in discipline, in belief, and in vision. She also understands the power of patience. Building doesn't mean rushing. It means laying each brick with intention. It means trusting that slow progress is still progress. And she doesn't quit just because it's taking time. She knows that the woman who builds her life brick by brick is far more powerful than the one waiting for someone to hand her the keys. And most importantly, she knows this truth. No one is coming to save her. And that's okay, because she already saved herself the moment she decided to stop waiting. She builds her peace, her future, her legacy, not loudly, but fully. Her energy speaks before she does. You can feel it when she walks into a room. Not because she's trying to dominate the space, but because her energy is undeniable. She doesn't demand attention. She simply carries herself in a way that makes people pause, take notice, and wonder, who is she? That's the quiet power of a strong woman. Her energy speaks volumes before she even opens her mouth. She doesn't need to announce who she is. She doesn't need to list her accomplishments. She doesn't wear her pain like a badge or her confidence like a costume. Everything about her presence feels real, and that's rare. That's why people are drawn to her. Not because she's trying, but because she's living in full alignment with who she truly is. Energy doesn't lie. It reveals what words often try to cover. A strong woman's energy says, I know myself. It says, I'm not here to impress, I'm here to be. It's calm, grounded, fierce when it needs to be, but never chaotic. She has nothing to prove and nothing to force because she's already in a place of internal knowing. What makes her energy magnetic isn't just confidence, it's peace. People can sense when someone is no longer in conflict with herself. They can feel the difference between someone performing for approval and someone radiating from authenticity. She doesn't shape-shift to fit the room. She becomes the room's grounding force. She doesn't compete. She commands, with grace, with stillness, with intention. And here's the secret. Her energy is a reflection of the work she's done in silence. The healing, the growth, the boundaries she enforced, the lessons she learned the hard way, the nights she cried but kept going anyway, all of that transformed her. So now, when she shows up, she brings that woman with her, the one who didn't quit, who didn't crumble, who didn't give her power away. She also protects her energy, fiercely. She's mindful of who she allows into her space, what conversations she entertains, what environments she chooses, because she knows her energy is her currency. It either drains her or fuels her, and she chooses to guard it like the sacred force it is. People might not understand why they feel different around her, but that's the beauty of energy. It works in the unseen. It bypasses the mask and speaks to the soul. That's why she doesn't need to shout her worth. Her presence does the talking. And when she walks away from something that no longer aligns, she doesn't explain or justify. She lets the shift in energy say what words never could. A strong woman knows, when your energy is rooted, healed and intentional, the world responds. Not because you asked it to, but because it can't ignore you. She heals, then she elevates. A strong woman doesn't skip the hard parts. She doesn't pretend to be unbothered when she's broken inside. She doesn't plaster on a smile and suppress her pain to keep up appearances. No, she feels everything. She faces it, and then she heals. That's the real power. Not in pretending to be strong, but in allowing herself to break so she can rise stronger. Healing isn't glamorous, it's messy, it's quiet, it's deeply personal, but she chooses it because she's tired of carrying wounds that keep her repeating the same cycles. She's tired of shrinking herself, of sabotaging her own joy, of expecting pain instead of peace. So she turns inward, not to escape, but to understand. She looks at her scars and asks what they're trying to teach her. She stops blaming the world and starts reclaiming her choices. She no longer seeks people to complete her, because through healing she realizes she was never incomplete. Just misaligned, just misunderstood, just unhealed. And here's what's remarkable. After she heals, she doesn't stay stuck in the past. She uses her healing as a launching pad. She elevates, in mindset, in relationships, in how she sees herself. She sheds the version of her that was built on survival and steps into the version built on intention. She no longer entertains chaos because her soul craves peace. She doesn't chase potential in others because she now sees the power in her own. She raises her standards, not from bitterness, but from growth. She has seen what she once accepted, and she knows she'll never settle for that again. And most importantly, she forgives. Not because they asked for it, not because they earned it, but because she refuses to carry that weight anymore. She releases the anger, the guilt, the self-blame. She gives herself permission to move forward without the chains of yesterday holding her down. Her elevation isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's in the way she now speaks life into herself, the way she walks into spaces knowing she belongs, the way she dreams without doubting, the way she no longer needs closure to move on. She understands now, healing was never just about getting over something. It was about becoming someone. The world notices the shift. Her energy is clearer. Her focus is sharper. She no longer reacts. She responds. She doesn't fear losing people. She's too busy finding herself. She healed, then she elevated. And now she's magnetic. She is the prize, and she knows it. There comes a moment when a woman stops asking, am I enough? And starts declaring, I am the prize. That moment changes everything. Because once she realizes her worth, she no longer settles. She no longer begs. She no longer entertains anything that doesn't honor who she is and what she brings to the table. A strong woman doesn't just hope she's valuable. She knows she is. Not from a place of arrogance, but from truth. She's earned it. Through every battle she fought alone, through every boundary she learned to set, through every time she wiped her own tears, stood up and kept going when no one was clapping for her. That kind of self-respect isn't given, it's built. She is the prize because of her resilience, her wisdom, her peace. She doesn't need to advertise it. She doesn't need to chase anyone to prove it. She simply is. And anyone who cannot see that, she lets them go without hesitation, because she's not in the business of convincing. When she walks into a relationship, she doesn't lead with fear. She leads with standards. She doesn't ask, will you choose me? She asks, do you deserve access to me? That mindset shift alone changes the dynamics, because she's not trying to be liked. She's observing, she's protecting her energy, and she's making sure that whoever sits at her table is bringing something real, not just empty words and potential. This is the woman who no longer apologizes for being too strong, too independent, too direct. She owns all of it. She doesn't dim her light to make others feel comfortable. She's not here to be small. She's here to be seen, respected, and loved for who she is, not for how easy she is to control. Being the prize means she doesn't settle for lukewarm love. She doesn't hold on to half-effort connections. She doesn't play games to get attention. She's not afraid to be alone, because her peace is better than any relationship that makes her question her value. She pours into herself first. She takes care of her mind, her body, her spirit. She invests in her growth, her goals, her dreams. And because of that, she attracts people and opportunities that match her frequency. She doesn't need to chase, she aligns. And here's the truth. Once she realizes she is the prize, the entire game changes. She stops running after people who walk away. She stops tolerating disrespect in the name of love. She stops lowering her standards to avoid being too much. She is the prize, and the right ones will recognize it. The rest, they'll fumble her, and that's not her problem. That's their loss. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg. She simply becomes, and lets the world adjust to her glow. She never needed to chase. She never needed to beg. All along, the power was within her, silent, waiting, ready. The moment she stopped seeking outside herself for validation, the game changed. The moment she looked in the mirror and decided, I am enough exactly as I am, her life began to shift. This is what the world often forgets. True strength isn't loud. It's not in the screaming or the struggling, it's in the stillness, in the woman who walks away quietly, in the woman who doesn't explain her boundaries, in the woman who honors herself even when no one else does. That kind of strength, it attracts, it draws everything aligned, and it clears out everything that isn't. You see, a strong woman doesn't become strong by accident. She becomes that way through the fire, through betrayal, disappointment, loneliness, and loss. She's been overlooked, she's been underestimated, she's had her heart broken, her trust shattered. But still, she didn't give up. She didn't stop showing up for herself. That's what makes her magnetic. She didn't crumble, she evolved. The most powerful thing a woman can ever do is come home to herself, to stop performing, to stop shrinking, to stop running after things that were never meant to stay. She doesn't need to prove her worth. She lives it. And when she does, the world takes notice, not because she's shouting, but because her presence says everything. People will ask, what's her secret? But it's not a secret. It's a choice, a daily decision to walk in self-respect, to no longer tolerate what drains her, to no longer confuse chaos with passion. She chooses peace, clarity, and purpose. And in doing so, she becomes a lighthouse, steady, shining, and unapologetically herself. She is no longer the woman who chases empty promises, no longer the one who waits by the phone, no longer the one who says yes to what insults her soul. She has rewritten her story. She now moves differently, with intention, with patience, with faith. She knows that anything worth having will find her, not because she begs for it, but because she is ready for it. This is your reminder. You don't need to chase, you need to align, you need to become, you need to rise so deeply into your truth that nothing not meant for you can stay. The relationships, the success, the peace, it will all come, but only when you stop running and start standing. You are the prize, you always have been. Now walk like it, speak like it, live like it. Because the woman who doesn't chase, but instead attracts through her presence, her power and her peace, she's unforgettable. And that woman is you.